The Nintendo Wii. Everyone bought one of these at some point, and by everyone, I mean everyone. With over 100 million units sold, your mom, cousin, and dog all shouted out the big bucks to get one of these things. With such a large user base, developers immediately hopped on the train and started making any game you could think of. Heck, there were over 1,000 games released in North America alone. As someone that has collected more than a couple of these games over the years, I've had plenty of time to sink my teeth into the best of the best, and the worst of the worst. And as someone who is also a speedrunner at heart, I've been interested in how fast you can clear some of these games. Today, after tons of searching on speedrun.com, I want to present to you quite possibly some of the weirdest Wii titles people have ever completed a speedrun of. This is the weirdest Wii speedruns ever. Now, how do we define the word weird? Well, that's quite a subjective description. For today, I simply want to rip into a selection of Wii titles that make for quite peculiar speedruns versus what you may expect. Like sure, we could talk about the 9-hour Mario Party 8 speedrun, but there's far worse Wii-related fates out there, like deciding to play Mario Party 9 instead. When going through my collection, the first series I never expected to have a fleshed out community was Just Dance. Sure, this game has been released on every modern system possible, but did you know that they somehow pumped out 18 of these games on this console? Wii users really couldn't get enough of this. So how do you speedrun Just Dance? Well, the goals depend on the title, but most runs consist of either reaching a specific score or playing a specific set of songs. The most intense categories of the bunch is non-stop shuffle, which instead of being a speedrun is kind of the opposite. It insists on you dancing for as long as possible, with it setting minimum requirements per song, so you can't just simply sit around and do nothing. While the equivalent of this category is seen across multiple of the titles, the most relevant for today is in Just Dance 4, since the longest runs there are done on the Wii, with the longest time there being 5.5 hours. Yeah, that's quite a lot of dancing. There's definitely some other Wii dance and music related games as well that people for some reason have decided to speedrun, such as Big Time Rush Dance Party and Alvin and the Chipmunks, with both of these games spanning 1 to 2 hours in length for their respective main speedrun categories, but I'll pass. All that dance talk has tired me out. Maybe we should take a quick food break. And who knows food better than Gordon Ramsay? Apparently he knows enough to have his own Wii game thanks to his own TV series Hell's Kitchen. This game is basically a cooking simulator with there being 35 days in total. There's a 5-star rating that ranks you based off your performance, and requires you to reach a certain threshold every day in order to move forward. While you are cooking, Ramsay will either compliment or berate you depending on your performance. In the case of speedrunning, there is any %, which simply requires you to get through all the 35 days, and 100%, which requires you to get a perfect 5 stars every single day. No matter which option you choose, this will take up to 4 hours of your time, with both mentioned runs being this long. Sadly, both of these records are on the PC release, but don't you worry, there's also a category for completing only the first week of work. On top of this, every category in this game has a 2-player co-op option, with 1-week co-op currently being the only record achieved on Wii. The amusing part of this whole game is the fact that some of Ramsay's remarks involve swearing. While it is censored, this perhaps may be one of the only Wii games to feature such a thing. Feel free to fact check me on such. If you want a similar vibe without some middle-aged British guy yelling at you, there's also Food Network Cook or Be Cooked, with the main category record there being a more manageable hour and a half, requiring you to collect 12 medals for completing every main meal in the game. With there being more cooking related Wii games than there ever should be, it seems like they give you a game to anyone even slightly related to food. Next you're gonna tell me there's a Guy Fieri Wii game. Oh, close enough. Minute to Win It, a game based on the game show of the same name, hosted by yours truly, Guy Fieri. The basis is pretty simple. There's 60-second challenges consisting of a wide variety of objects and goals. There's 4 different episodes to play from in this game, with each one having its own separate speedrun category. Each one seems to clock in at the 10 to 20 minute range. While making this, I noticed the all episodes category has yet to be touched. Someone better get on that. Someone took their time to write a full step-by-step guide on this game. Okay, while I may have partially gotten my previous wish, Flavortown is not the place I wanted to stop. I'm still craving a bit of food-related action. Let's move over to Ninjabread Man, one of the most infamous Wii games of all time due to how notably bad it is. If you ever wanted to beat a completely rushed 3D platformer with the Wiimote and nunchuck, well today's your lucky day. The game is hilariously short, only having 4 levels in total. The fastest time is able to get through these in only 11 minutes. This game gets even more broken though, with it being possible to beat the entire game in only 3 minutes. In stage 1, you can complete an out-of-bounds skip to get past the long initial training level, and then on top of that, you can completely skip a level just in the level selection menu. You want to know how this is possible? If you press A to load the next level, and then press A for a second time before the load screen appears, it automatically skips the upcoming level. You can repeat this more than once, which means that after stage 1, the any % run skips stage 3, and once again, clearing that stage skips the final level, which leads to the run being completely over. Boom. You beat the entire game. Considering how cheap it is to get this game, it's surprising how how few runs there are of this, with any percent only having 2 documented players. Maybe it really is that bad, but I'm not done. The company who is responsible for this, Data Design Interactive, notably threw out a handful more of these games, and they were very infamous for recycling things. This goes as far as even recycling the same game engines and menus, with the level skip glitch also being present in the games Rock'n'Roll Adventures and Anubis II, with the first of those mentioned being the only one of the two to have documented speedruns of the Wii version. The any percent category there is 4 minutes, and all levels is still only a laughable 7-minute time. These people also made way too many racing games, with the funniest of the bunch being Action Girls Racing. Just like the platformers, a lot of these work similarly, and trust me, they all equally suck. The game I just mentioned notably has an any percent category, with the record being just over a second. This is because it consists of simply entering the game and hitting the attached credit screen on the home menu. Pretty underwhelming. While we are on the subject of really weird Wii games, I have to use this as an excuse to bring up the greatest game of all time again, Eminem's Kart Racing. I may be joking about how great it is, but you may not believe me when I tell you, this is actually better than many Wii racing games. This makes Action Girls Racing look like the biggest steaming pile of garbage. What's even better is that Eminem's Kart Racing has had one of the most fleshed out communities for any weird Wii game, with yours truly being the reason that it even happened. While I could include so many things about this title, I'll keep it brief. The 2 main things this game offers as speedrunning is 1. Tournament mode, which is playing through every track back-to-back Grand Prix style, and 2. Time trials. With all these tracks here being heavily optimized at this point thanks to multiple different types of skips, and simply figuring out how the technicals of this game works. While I'm at it, I will also quickly mention there are 2 other Eminem Wii titles for some reason, with them not having nearly as much activity as their kart racing equivalent. While making this, I found out that I'm the sole moderator for Eminem's Beach Party for some reason. I had nothing to do with the creation of this leaderboard and have yet to even play the game myself. Weird. Let's step away from food-related games. Instead, let's talk about a movie that clearly everyone thought needed a game. Welcome to B-Movie Game. This game was released on pretty much every single system that was relevant at the time, Wii included. The any percent speedrun actually does have some proper strategy to it, with a skip happening a minute into the run. You can simply quit back to the main menu, and then re-enter the story mode in order to skip the typically required minigame. The worst part of this run is having to grind enough honey required to get through the game, with the record spending 10 minutes just to do that. Continuing on the movies that everyone totally requested the game of, Despicable Me. To be honest, I don't have much to say about this game, cause why would I? The only thing I can briefly mention is the fact that the main character, Gru, moves faster when he jumps, so in parts where you normally walk, it's optimal to repeatedly jump instead. We've been talking about movies, but what about TV shows? Well, if you're a 40-year-old mom, I got you covered. Grey's Anatomy, the video game. With this being based on a hospital surgeon-related show, there's some things in this run I think I'll pass on putting on this video. The only gross thing you need to know is that the any percent record is 6 hours, with one brave soul taking one for the team and running this. If that 40-year-old mom is still watching, it's your lucky day, because one of your other favorite TV shows also got made into a Wii game, The Bachelor. The longest run there is a bit more manageable, getting through all 5 seasons of the game in 2 hours. I am happy to say though that if the previous long run is your cup of tea, America's Next Top Model can also be run about 6 hours, cause that's clearly what people want to spend most of their day playing. Alright, you're probably a bit tired out by the TV show games at this point. I can mix it up a bit. I still got a handful more games I want to talk about. Have you ever tried to imagine what babies partying would look like? Well, our friends at Ubisoft did, and thanks to them, we got this game. At least 3 people thought it was a good idea to run this, with the main solo adventure category requiring you to get through said game mode, with the record being in the 1 hour 10 minute range. I really don't understand who this game is for. I very much doubt children will want to play this. If you're old enough to drive a car and want to play this, I have multiple more questions for you. Moving on from that is probably one of the best games I'll mention today, Fling Smash. This may lead you to ask, why would I include this in a weird Wii game speedrun list? Well, it's because this is a really bad game to speedrun. This comes down to the fact the majority of the game is an auto-scroller, with the boss fights really being the only thing to majorly mix things up. Runners realize this too, and that's why Boss Rush became a more recent category, with it consisting of you playing through every boss fight back to back, which takes about 20 minutes. The any percent category on the other hand is over an hour and a half, with a large amount of auto-scrolling making that run feel even slower than that. The last thing I'll end with today is 2 similar but also different titles. The first is Gummy Bears Mini Golf. I'm not sure who thought these 2 things should go together, but here we are. This game is nothing special in the slightest, it's standard mini golf, except you're a gummy bear. The any percent record for this is pretty tame, being under 20 minutes, but the 100% record on the other hand is a completely different story. This 3+ hour run consists of achieving all 20 in-game rewards, as well as purchasing every available piece of clothing, equipment, and nameplates. Yeah, they added quite a lot to a game named Gummy Bears Mini Golf. Continuing on the Gummy Bear train, the final game for today is Gummy Bear's Magical Medallion. Instead of it being a typical mini golf experience, this is instead a 2.5D platformer that personally looks quite lifeless and dragged out. Runners have been able to beat this in half an hour, with no one being brave enough to explore the 100% experience yet. One last thing to note here is that both of these Gummy Bear games were also on DS consoles, so if you thought the originals looked bland, you better not be complaining. As of scripting, no one has been brave enough to run these versions yet. Wrapping things up, that is my wide-reaching platter of some of the weirdest and most bizarre titles that people have ever decided to speedrun on the Nintendo Wii. With the console having hundreds upon hundreds of games, there very much are many more games that could stand a decent chance at making this list, but no matter what, I hope I gave you a decent sample of some of the most mind-boggling games housed on the console. Please comment any games you wish I put on this list, and maybe I'll make a part 2 in the future, but until then, thanks for watching.